Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Film Nerd Podcast. This is episode 13. I'm Vince, and tonight I am joined once again for the second episode in a row by two guests. Tonight I have with me Justin D'Agostino, who is a repeat guest, and a first-time guest, Mike Carter. Both are two gentlemen that I played college football with and enjoyed a college experience with at Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan. Mike, Justin, welcome on. How you guys doing?
Doing well. I'm excited. I actually legitimately have butterflies. I'm kind of nervous about this whole thing.
Dude, it's funny you say it because when I did it with Vince a month ago, I don't know, whenever that was, Vince, I was nervous. During the intro, I'm like, oh, shit. But yeah, excited though.
Oh, you don't have to be nervous. There's only a few dozen people who consistently watch, so it's just for fun. we just have a good time. It's just for fun. But I'm glad that you guys care that much. I appreciate you taking time out on a Sunday here to join me. It's going to be a good conversation. Justin, I asked you this when I had you on about a month ago, but I'll ask Mike because this is his first time on. Mike, what has your theatrical experience been like over the last year in the pandemic? Have you managed to go see anything at the theater since March of 2020?
The only movie I've seen was a drive-in movie theater, and I saw Beetlejuice.
Oh, nice.
With my girlfriend. Other than that, I haven't been back to the movies. I just got HBO Max, and yeah, the old Beetlejuice. It was fucking. It was a blast.
Oh, I bet. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Bring in, all of these, we had a cheese and meat platter, and then she was driving, so I was having a couple beers. It was a really good time. Highly recommend it.
Which one did you go to? Which drive-in was that?
It was in Detroit.
Okay.
Area.
So if you're listening, Justin, if you listen to Justin's episode, Justin currently lives in Chicago. Mike is in Michigan on the east side by Detroit. We only have, I looked it up this summer, I think 9 to 12 drive-ins in the entire state of Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah, there's not many because I was desperately looking to find one to go to.
You say 9 to 12 in the whole state of Michigan?
The whole state. It's not many. Yeah, and there's none.
There's at least 2 or 3 in the Detroit area, right?
Yeah. There's none in mid-Michigan where I live in Lansing. There's the closest one to me is in Coldwater, which is down close by Hillsdale. And that's an hour and a half, just over an hour drive. And I just never I never took the time to go. Detroit area, like Detroit, Flint, Greater Detroit area. There's, I think 3, I believe, Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids area has 3. And I think there's 2 up by Traverse City, if I remember correctly, because I looked.
Nothing on the west side.
That's interesting. Southwest. There's some in Kalamazoo and Battle Creek. I don't know in terms of Grand Rapids. I don't.
That's what I was thinking. Grand Rapids. I don't know. They got the IMAX up there too, so maybe I don't know.
I know Celebration in Lansing. The Celebration here did a drive-in, a built-in drive-in. The screen obviously was a blow-up screen in their parking lot. They still have it, so it's not nearly as nice as a real drive-in. But
I got you.
So is that the only one you managed to go to, Mike? Was just that one experience over the last year?
Yeah, that's it. I miss the theater. I really do.
Well, now, Justin, did you say to go see? We're about to talk about Godzilla versus Kong in a little bit here. Did you say you got to go see it in IMAX?
I didn't see it in IMAX, but I saw it at the theater.
You did go to the movies to go see it, though.
Yes, I did.
How was that? Was that you? I thought you told me you went and saw Tenet, so it wasn't your first time back, right?
Yeah, I saw Tenet last year, actually twice in theaters.
So this was
once regular and then once IMAX. Tenet last year.
So this is your third time in a year being at the movies?
Yes. Actually, I saw another movie a few weeks ago. Girlfriend made me go see it. Really was not good at all.
What movie?
Honestly, it was with Tom Holland.
Oh, Cherry?
Not Cherry, no, because you can just watch that at home.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the title was, but it's a movie. It was not good. Don't go see it. I don't even want to advertise the movie. But basically, the premise was it's post-apocalyptic. Everybody's got to leave Earth.
Oh, Chaos Walking? Was it Chaos Walking? That's on Netflix.
Well, you know what? I don't know.
I heard that was bad. I heard it was really
I
bad.
paid money to see that, so yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
other than that, Godzilla versus Kong. That's the fourth time I've gone to a movie theater in the last like year, basically.
Carter, do you think you'll try and get back sometime soon, or has it just not been an opportunity, or just trying to wait and see how things go in terms of getting back to the movies?
I've just gotten so acclimated, just like basically being a hermit at my house, that I just doesn't even like register for me to go to the theater. I don't even think about it. I'm just like, all right, well, I'll see what else is on HBO Max right now. But you guys talking about it makes me want to get fleeced at the theater and spend like $50 on the beer now, and then some nachos, and then popcorn, and then probably get some Sour Patch Kids too. Maybe a slushie.
Justin and I talked about this like a month ago when I had you on, the fact that now with the HBO Max simultaneously releasing everything same weekend as theater as their streaming service, there's not really, I mean, unless there's something that you want to see that's not currently streaming, there's not really a reason to. And I was talking to you guys before we started recording here. I, now have 2 kids at home. So the convenience of me of trying to drive to the movies is not nearly as, readily available as before.
Different.
So yeah. So like for me to be able to just turn my TV on as I got a bottle wedged into a kid's mouth and load HBO Max makes it a little bit easier for me, to keep that experience at home. I want to get back to the movies. Caroline, my wife Caroline, I did go see a movie in January. We went and saw Promising Young Woman at a theater in January, and then we went and saw Minari at a theater in February, which are both up for Oscars. So that's the only movies I've seen since Tenet. I saw Tenet twice, like you did, Justin, back in August and September. So that was the first experience I had.
One like regular and then one IMAX, right?
Yeah, I did the same thing as you. I went to just to freaking see it. I was like, I'm going to see it wherever I can. So I think I told you I drove to Indiana back in August when all the theaters were closed here. To go see. Yeah, I was like determined to go see it. My buddy and I went down to what's the town? It's where Trine is, just over the border off of 69. Angola. Went down to Angola to an NCG, and then we my dad, my brother, and I in September when theaters opened back up in Michigan went to IMAX to see it as well. So yeah, I haven't been back other than those few experiences, but again, with the convenience of all these new movies coming out on streaming services, it's kind of I don't want to say what's the point, because a movie like this I would have loved to have seen on IMAX. I'm sure, even just the regular screen, regular auditorium, it was still probably a lot of fun. Justin, I would imagine,
it was awesome.
A movie like this, with the fight scenes that we'll get to talking about here in a little bit, would have loved to see on the big screen. I absolutely, no matter what, I'm going to do whatever I can to see Dune on IMAX later this year.
I cannot wait for that movie to come out.
I am going to go see Dune in a theater.
I almost cried when they got delayed because it was supposed to come out in December last year. I literally almost cried.
Yeah, I know, but I don't blame them. I mean, no one was gonna go see it. No, I mean, who was gonna go?
What's the release date now?
I think it's December of this year. I think they pushed it a full year. I'm pretty sure.
Damn.
But
that is movie.
I know, I'm very excited to go see that. But anyway, so with that'll kind of take care of introduction here. We'll kind of push it along into the main discussion. So Justin and Mike and I are going to talk about a few movies tonight. The first couple that I want to talk about, I encourage them to watch, and we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about it, but I just thought it'd be a fun excuse since we're going to talk about Godzilla versus Kong to kind of chat about the original 1933 King Kong and the original 1954 Godzilla. I had never seen either of them, and since they were both streaming on HBO Max, where the other MonsterVerse movies were currently streaming, I thought it'd be kind of a fun opportunity to check them out. So we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about them, but I thought it would be kind of fun to, short discussion here. So the first one we'll kind of chat about, and Mike, I think you said it was King. You saw Godzilla, but you didn't get a chance to watch Kong. So we'll keep this one pretty short. So the original King Kong, if you have not seen it, came out in 1933, and it is an American film, whereas Godzilla is a Japanese production. It came out, before the MPAA rating system. So it's kind of an interesting, they call it pre-code film, where there wasn't really restrictions on what was in the film. So it's actually kind of violent for a really old movie. There's some pretty disturbing death scenes. And if you've seen the 2005 Peter Jackson King Kong, it pretty much, Peter Jackson's version pretty much followed the exact same story beat for beat and just expanded upon it. Peter Jackson's film is like 3 hours, whereas the 1933 Kong is under 2 hours. It's barely over, it's about an hour 40. So basically he expanded upon all the characters. He added more scenes to Skull Island, but essentially if you know that story, those plot points beat for beat, pretty much the same film except 1933. So obviously you don't have some of the same special effects. Justin, this was your first time watching the 1933 Kong?
Yes, probably the last as well.
Oh, so you didn't really enjoy it. What were your thoughts on it?
Not 1933. So I mean, it's just an older movie. It's a it's just a tough watch in that regard. But obviously the story's interesting. But I thought as I'm watching it, it was like the exact same as the 2005 film, right? Like the exact same storyline, just a little bit, obviously a little more modern, right? So.
Well, I agree. It's not, it's 1933, so it's not, it doesn't have some of the epic.
You got to go into it with the right expectations, obviously. And you
got to watch it within a vacuum. You got to have that kind of mindset that this is a time capsule. What are their limitations in 1933 compared to, 70 years later when Peter Jackson did his, reinterpretation remake of the same film. So you don't have.
Yeah, but when you consider what they had available at that time, I mean, it's a great movie, right?
So that was really the one thing I just wanted to touch on was kind of the special effects for 1933 are pretty impressive, and actually they were groundbreaking. There were a few things they did in that movie to create the monsters and some of those scenes that were groundbreaking. They'd never been done before. It was a first time special effects things they created for this film. One thing that got popularized in this film that would be used for decades to come was rear projection, where they have a scene with characters and something is going on in the background and it looks like it's in the same scene, but it's just they have a screen in that scene that they're filming and they're projecting imagery onto the screen from behind it. They received a special Oscar for the screen that was created for the film. They literally created a brand new screen to use in the background, and they would project images on the background. So like Justin, since you saw the film, there's a lot of scenes with like creatures in the background. So that's all rear projection. And then obviously the other thing that was kind of groundbreaking was the use of the stop motion animation. Like Kong and all the creatures are literally stop motion animation that they filmed to scale and then projected on the back of the screen with the actors in the foreground. Which obviously now in 2021, you can kind of tell that it's not real, but I think it is pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting to see what they did. And then how they spliced some of the frames together, some of the editing to kind of create some of those visual effects is interesting. The sound design is interesting. And some of the violence, like I said, this is I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Hays Moral Code. The Hays Moral Code was the rating system before the MPAA, and it came out in 1934, so 1 year before this movie. So there was like no restrictions at what you could put in your movie at the time.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, there was for a long time, the Catholics and the Christians got really pissed off by the time the 30s rolled around because there was no limitations on what went into movies. So they came up with this thing called the Hays Moral Code, where this guy literally created like a checklist of what was allowed in movies and what was not allowed in movies. So like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, all those movies are super clean, kind of stale in terms of their content because you couldn't put things in them. And then the 60s roll around, you got the movie Psycho, and you start to get some of these crazier movies that even though they were controversial, it was because they eliminated the Hays Moral Code and said, screw it, and then they came up with the MPAA. But this movie
When did they come up with the, what is it, MPAA? When did they come up with that? What year,
MPAA was in the 60s. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go look. I can't remember exactly what year, but it was in the 60s.
I didn't know that.
But so yeah, if you like go through some of the movies that came out in the 1960s, they were far more violent than the previous couple decades because there were so many limitations on what you could have. I mean, there was almost no swearing, there was no nudity, there was almost no sexual content whatsoever. Violence, you couldn't show any blood. I mean, 1960s Psycho was filmed in black and white to get away with the blood.
That's clever.
That's why they filmed it in black and white. That's how Alfred Hitchcock got around the Hays Moral Code at the time. So there was a lot of things that you had to do to be creative if you wanted violence in your movies. But this movie is pretty, I mean, I know that it's stop motion animation, but would you say some of those scenes are, I mean, if you're a little kid watching it, it's pretty graphic. I mean, there's
Oh yeah, it's
there's
graphic.
brontosauruses chewing up and tearing up guys from the boats.
Yeah.
Kong rips a dude in half at one point. I mean, again, I know it's, they're like dummies, they're not real, but I mean,
No, but you're
for nine-
somebody, living in the 1930s and you see that movie for the first time, like you've never
Blow your
seen
mind.
anything like it. That's
it'd blow
blowing your mind for sure.
Absolutely. People would lose their minds in 1933, I'm sure, watching that movie.
Absolutely.
But you said you didn't really enjoy it overall. You don't think it was something you'd ever check out again?
It's just a matter of the time difference, man. I guess I'm spoiled now. We're all spoiled now. We don't have to, we watch movies in a different experience now. So
it is hard to kind of train your mind to go into those movies and to just kind of sit back. And I always try to, but it is hard to remove yourself from what you watch now. We are spoiled is a good way to
especially,
put it.
I watched Godzilla versus Kong and then watched King Kong 1933.
Okay.
Yeah,
I watched the earlier ones first because I knew that would be very jarring to go back to the old ones from the new ones.
Oh yeah.
I did the same thing.
It's an interesting transition. I should have went Kong 1933 and then started there and then watched every movie after that.
It's a little bit easier transition if you work your way up, I would say. Yeah, going back would be kind of a tough transition. The only other thing I would add with this is I think it is worth watching at least one time to kind of see, at the time it was considered kind of a groundbreaking, what you would call a blockbuster now. The movie was made for $500,000, which was a lot of money back then. And it made $5 million.
It made $5 million?
That, if you did the inflation, $5 million.
What does that equate to?
It's got to be hundreds of millions. I don't know.
That's what I was trying to figure out because I'm looking at the budget for it. I'm like, that I feel like for 1933, that had to be an enormous amount of money.
It absolutely was. Yeah, it was very expensive, but it made a ton of money. I mean, it was basically, what you would consider a blockbuster now. I mean, it made a ton of money, and there was a sequel. The same year a sequel came out. I mean, this movie came out in March, and there was a movie called Son of Kong. It was a sequel that came out in December the same year because they were like, oh my God, we just made so much money. We gotta capitalize on this. And they immediately put out a sequel that winter.
I remember reading that, thinking that was so interesting. That the Son of Kong, wasn't it like an albino gorilla too?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't bother watching
it.
I
obviously didn't watch that, but
apparently it's not as good. It's not it's not.
I didn't know he had a son. I didn't know that was ever part of the storyline. I thought he was a solo guy,
I don't know if it's considered canon, but
yeah.
How bad was the acting in the King Kong movie?
It's not bad. It's so sexist and racist. That's another thing. That's it's a time capsule in that regard. Like the way they treat Ann Darrow. I don't know, Mike. I don't remember I don't know the last time you watched the Peter Jackson film. So the woman, if you remember, her name's Ann Darrow. It's literally all the same character names too. But the Ann Darrow character in this movie is subjected to so much sexism. The moment she gets on the boat, the first mate keeps telling her, you shouldn't be here, you're a woman, you just get in the way, literally verbatim, just telling her, you're a woman, you shouldn't be here, you're getting in everyone's way, you're a distraction. It's it's
kind of brutal.
Man, it's brutal. And then
it's kind of cringe.
And then the natives, the way that they're portrayed and discussed. There's a Chinese cook on the boat who is also an absolutely racist caricature. And so
isn't the original King Kong it's kind of an allegory for colonialism and slavery in a way?
that is something that also is commonly discussed with this film. And we'll get into Godzilla 1954 in a moment here. So the 1954 Godzilla, the creators had an intention, a metaphorical intention with that creature. Now for King Kong 1933, I never know how to say this guy's last name, Shadesbeck, one of the directors and writers and producers, or producer and director, and Cooper, it was co-directed. The two guys who made this film claim there was no deeper meaning behind the movie. It was simply they came up with this idea for a monster film. I went through some of the background on the film, and they kind of took inspiration, from some of the discoveries in paleontology and we're just trying to come up with kind of this monster movie. And there's excuse me, but what you just mentioned ever since has been a common criticism that this movie's basically King Kong is like a representation of like the African experience in the United States, like slavery, like basically taken from his homeland, brought over in chains, and then basically destroyed, quote unquote, in modern America by the white man. So that has been a common criticism and interpretation of the film. They claimed there was no deeper meaning in the movie, that anyone who said that was looking too far into it, that it simply was just a monster film. But I think it is worth discussing, especially in 1933. You're less than 70 years removed from the Civil War, and you still have quite a bit of racism and Jim Crow laws and all that stuff. So it's worth talking about. Whether they meant it or not could have subconsciously slipped into the movie, but this also is
never admitted to having that idea, just from maybe like backlash from it.
Yeah, that's another thing, is would they, if they did kind of have some of those ideas on the ground, and the writing table, would they admit to it? Probably not, because their movie wouldn't have made $5 million.
No.
The other thing that's interesting about this movie is it is the reason for Donkey Kong.
No shit.
King Kong is the inspiration for the name of Donkey Kong. That's where the Kong came from for the video game. So interesting, also a little trivia fact. But since Mike hasn't seen this movie, we can move on, unless Justin, you have anything else you wanted to add?
The only thing I'd like to add is another fun fact. Donkey Kong is my character when I play Super Mario Kart and Super Smash. So
Justin loves Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next movie here. Before we get into the MonsterVerse, I just want to really quick talk about 1954's Godzilla. Mike has seen this one, so we'll talk about this for a few minutes here. So Godzilla, or Gojira in Japanese, which they use the term Gojira in the MonsterVerse films, I thought was kind of interesting. It was directed by Ishiro Honda, and he is referenced in the MonsterVerse movie, so we'll get to that as well. This movie was also iconic for its special effects. In 1954. It is a Japanese film, so I don't think it came to the United States until 1956, 2 years later. So it came out in Japan in 1954. It took 2 years for them to make it a quote unquote Americanized version. They dubbed it in English, and they actually re-edited. It was actually heavily re-edited. I was reading. I have not seen it, and it had a different name. It was called Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which there's a 2019 film we'll talk about as well with the same name, but that was the 1956 release in the United States. So this film also has some kind of groundbreaking special effects. I personally thought the King Kong special effects were a bit more convincing. While the special effects in this film are interesting, they're commonly famous for their use of suitmation, is what it's called, where they literally had a guy dress up in a suit. And basically it was like, it's a portmanteau of stop motion animation and a guy wearing a suit. So like suitmation is where the name came from. It's like they built all these sets and models that were like the size, to scale of a city of Tokyo. And the other places that the character is in the film. And this guy,
that was hilarious.
Yeah, the guy dresses up in a suit and destroys everything.
Can you imagine acting that up? That's hilarious.
So they had two separate, and what I read was they had two separate filming cycles. They had a series of 51 days for principal photography, and then another 71 days for the special effects. So I don't know how much cross there was between that with the guy in the suit. I don't know if the special effects photography was the 71 days with the guy in the suit, and the other 51 were all the characters, the scenes where they're talking, and you have real people or whatever in real locations. But so what'd you guys think of this one? Mike, since you obviously didn't see King Kong, I'll let you get your thoughts first. What'd you think of 1954's Godzilla? Had you seen it before?
Never seen it before. I thought it was comical.
You thought it was comical?
Comical. I was laughing for the majority of the whole movie.
Yeah.
I thought like the way that it started out. I mean, the kind of the sound effects for the time period I thought were pretty impressive. I thought the music,
the scream,
shit, like they did a good job initially, kind of making it, pretty spooky. But yeah, once Godzilla came out, it just started getting ridiculous because you can tell everything's like they got these little houses that they just built for it, and then he can't even move his arms, man. And I remember like when they're doing the slow motion thing of him, not slow motion, he wasn't even walking. Of like the jets shooting the missiles at him.
Yep.
And every missile like missed him. They didn't hit once. The whole movie, it was just kind of funny. And then the acting was kind of piss poor as well. So
Justin, what'd you think?
I mean, I'm trying to compare it to experience watching King Kong. I like Godzilla.
They're very different. The special effects for both films are very different.
I grew up
separated by 20 years.
Oh yeah, for sure, 20 years. But I think it's kind of funny when I think about because I grew up watching this and.
Oh, you did? You had seen it before?
I was a kid.
Okay.
I watched all those Godzilla movies, dude. There's
really? I'd never seen any of them.
All of them. I've seen all of them. So there's like so many different creatures. Why I'm kind of like excited about where this is going. You know, the MonsterVerse.
Yep.
But I read that Suitmation, whatever it's called, how somebody was literally dressed up as Godzilla. And as I'm watching this, I'm moving around and I'm like, I think it's absolutely hilarious. Like, I'm wondering if it's just really difficult for him to move around in the suit. If they were like, take really small steps or whatever it was. I just thought it was so funny. But I enjoyed it.
If he's getting into character too, like he's psyching himself up like before he gets in the suit.
I would love to see behind the scenes of like filming that, like the
he's like
special features.
He's always in character when he's not in the suit.
just grunting and roaring.
Doesn't speak.
Not speaking any English or Japanese.
The storyline itself though was great. I mean, compared to the Kong. We'll get into that, the newest one. I thought
completely different Godzilla.
One, it's just super original. Just the idea behind it was pretty great, and then it's just the acting, and it's just so fucking old that
it's dated.
Yeah,
it's dated. But I'm glad you brought up the concept behind it because that's one of the reasons this film is so famous, and it's only less than a decade removed from World War II. So post World War II, Japan was, obviously devastated by the nuclear fallout and repercussions and death and injury and all the all the horrible things that resulted after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the bombing of those two cities. So this movie was kind of a reflection of the post-war fear of the nuclear. The bombing of those cities, and Godzilla was created as kind of a metaphor for nuclear war. And it is kind of interesting, like you said, watching the film. And I don't know if you guys were aware of that going into it. Were you guys aware of that intention by the filmmakers or no?
I was, yeah. And that's why I like the Godzilla in the 1950s, the original film. He's so different than the Godzilla you're seeing today.
Yeah. We'll get into that in just a little bit here, but there's a completely different intention that I want to talk about with the new one versus this one, because obviously, again, with it being less than a decade removed from World War II, it's very raw. What happened to Japan, at the hands of the United States. So this was kind of, a cinematic representation of how they felt, kind of that hopelessness, that helplessness, because there's nothing you can do against Godzilla. Just like there's nothing you can do against a nuclear bomb. You're just subjected to it. You can fight as much as you want, but people are going to die. Things are going to be destroyed. And to me, that's the most interesting part of the film, is kind of thinking about and discussing that aspect of it. And I do like this. The special effects are a little silly. And it is kind of hard not to laugh, like you guys said, as you're watching. But Mike, I'm glad you brought up the score. The score is like iconic. That theme that they play throughout the film when Godzilla shows up, it is so it's kind of chilling, like you said. It's a very distinct theme that they play throughout the film. The sound design for Godzilla's roar is also very eerie, and they tried to do something new with it in the new films, but that original sound is just, it kind of it's kind of spine tingling. Geez, I can't talk. Spine tingling. That
Yeah.
noise that he makes. It's like ear piercing. It is kind of interesting how they came up with that sound for his roar. I will agree with you. The characters and the dialogue and some of the acting is like, it's whatever.
What I did like about it, actually, sorry, Vince, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Whatever you got.
But the one scene where they're actually dissecting who the hell Godzilla is, where did he come from? I thought that was interesting. Remember when they held like a conference in that movie? Had like a little conference.
It's pretty early on, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 30 minutes in or so.
Yeah.
Like that in. I thought that was interesting because I didn't know that. I just kind of thought, I don't know what I thought about where he came from or what his deal was, but they kind of went into that in the original film. And I don't know, just appreciated that. Thought it was interesting.
Because I'll save it. I'll get into that in just a moment here with the 2014 one, but
yeah,
it's kind of different in the new one. It's not quite the same thing.
No, it's not.
And again, I think it kind of has to do with the intention of the filmmakers. Like the purpose of Godzilla in the original film is different than kind of how they're portraying him in the new movie. And I think you got to appreciate kind of what they're going for there with that original film. But
creative.
For me, I don't know how much I would rewatch the 1933 King Kong. I don't know if I'd ever watch the 54 Godzilla again. I don't know about you guys. I think it's worth watching.
I wouldn't. I'll be honest.
The only
I'm
time
not mad that I watched it though. I'm not that I wasted an hour and a half of my life.
Yeah, it's not very long. It's literally just over 90 minutes, so it's not that long of a watch. And it's, if you got HBO Max, it's already there. You might as well check it out. And I think it is worth watching, just to kind of experience that original. And it is an iconic film in terms of monster movies and the Godzilla franchise. I mean, it's where it started at all. It's definitely worth checking out, but unless I was showing someone else the movie, I don't know if I'd ever watch it again. But
entertaining.
If you guys don't have anything else to add, we can kind of get into the MonsterVerse here. I thought we'd just talk about those for a little bit. What do you guys think? Anything else? Final thoughts?
Well, one, I have a pot roast going on a slow cooker, and it just beeps. Are you guys cool?
We can take a little break if you got to go. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a good time for you to talk to your sponsors too. Give them a plug.
I wish I had sponsors. Could you guys get me some sponsors?
No, this is sponsored by Manscaped. If you got a big Manscaped, the code is Cook. You'll get 20% off, and you'll be looking good downstairs. But I'm gonna get my slow roast.
Okay, so now we are going to kind of move on from our discussion here on 1933 Kong, 1954 Godzilla, and we're going to get into the MonsterVerse. So the MonsterVerse was conceived nearly a decade ago by Legendary Entertainment and Warner Brothers. And essentially the entire concept behind the MonsterVerse was to finally get a modern Hollywood version of Godzilla fighting King Kong. That was the whole intention behind it. And kind of get some of these legendary monsters that have come from the King Kong Godzilla movies, on the blockbuster Hollywood screen. Obviously, they've been portrayed in a lot of Japanese cinema over the years and other markets, but they were trying to finally do a Hollywood version of it. Excuse me. So the
whole idea behind it was the whole idea was to eventually have Kong versus Godzilla. Like that was what the original idea was.
From the get-go, that was basically what I believe they announced, was that their end goal was to eventually get Kong and Godzilla in a movie. So
what we should have done? Well, we should have watched the original Godzilla vs. Kong.
I know there is, and that was a Japanese film too, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
1960s or 70s.
Something like
that. I bet that would be funny.
I know. I've heard that is pretty funny. Like, because I think it's two guys in suits. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome.
It would have been the best acting job ever, dude.
Have you seen it, Justin? Have you seen that original one?
Yeah.
Is it two guys in suits?
I mean, now that you mention it, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I mean, it literally looks like these two guys just like going around like this, and then sometimes they fall over, you know what I mean? And that's
and crush all the models.
Exactly. Yeah.
You got to appreciate it. You got to appreciate the lengths they went to. But the MonsterVerse started in 2014 with the first entry in the Godzilla franchise. Not the first one since 1998, but I think it was the first Hollywood one since 1998, because they're having the 1998 one with Matthew Broderick, I believe, was the first Hollywood attempt at a Godzilla film, if I'm not mistaken. So the only second one Hollywood has ever done is the 2014 film.
Different.
And the 1998 one's really bad. I remember seeing it when I was a kid.
Oh my God.
I remember it was not very good.
Movie
So the new one was directed by Gareth Edwards, and Gareth Edwards was also the same guy who did the Star Wars Rogue One spinoff, and I think he's a pretty solid director.
I love Rogue One.
Now, the 2014 Godzilla film, I did not see upon initial release. When I watched it for this podcast, that was my first time ever seeing it. So I don't know about you guys. I don't know your first experience with this 2014 Godzilla film. Was this your first time watching, or had you guys seen it before?
I'd seen it when it first came out. So I didn't rewatch it, but I do remember the movie, bits and pieces of it. I enjoyed what I watched. I mean, for what it was, but it's been a minute since I've seen it.
When I heard about it coming out, I was stoked. So I saw it.
He's a Godzilla fanboy. That's
Godzilla
what
guy.
Justin is. He's a nerd, man.
So, dude, I didn't watch like Barney when I was a kid. Like, I didn't watch Barney or any of that stuff.
Godzilla.
I was a Godzilla kid, which is insane if you think about it, because it's how are those like the two options, Barney or Godzilla? I don't know, but
for your dinosaur friend.
That's why you turned out the way that you have, is because you grew up on Godzilla, so now it's led you to become this extremely violent, dangerous person.
Destroying and destruction of everything in your path.
I know.
I do in college.
I need to.
So what do you think about this one, Justin? Do you enjoy the 24 with you having seen so many of the Godzilla films?
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy this one?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was a good intro film. I appreciated the acting. I thought the acting was good. It was different because the other Godzilla films, it's more just action where, I mean, looking back at it now, it's just two guys in a suit wrestling around with each other. Whereas the intro, the Godzilla 2014, that one, I felt like the camera angle, it was more so from the people's point of view. And then in the background, Godzilla's, doing his thing. And so it wasn't as much as the monsters fighting. It was more so what the people are doing while the fight's going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something I really liked about this movie there. And that was a big complaint. So I don't know how well aware you guys are of like the, in 2014, the audience or critical reaction to this film. Critically, it was pretty well received. Audiences weren't really big fans of it. It got a lot of negative feedback from audiences, and they complained about the very thing you said you liked. And I really liked that aspect of it too. Gareth Edwards chose a more Spielberg approach to this movie, like kind of like Jaws, where you don't see Godzilla for a long time. And I thought that was cool. It was kind of like a classic monster film where you're waiting and they're building the suspense, and there's little tidbits and little pieces for you before you finally get the big reveal of Godzilla, right? You get snippets here and there. And like you said, I kind of appreciate how the focus wasn't really on all this, CGI and the monsters fighting. It was more on kind of the failures of, and this is again what I mentioned with the 1954 Godzilla, the intention behind this movie is more of the man versus nature aspect, and kind of how your futile efforts and your failings, in the face of nature, it's just meaningless, because there's nothing you can, at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do to stop nature. And that's kind of what this movie focuses on. It focuses on the little moments, right? There's all these little scenes in the movie, these human moments. And even the first half of the film focuses on like a main group of characters, but by the second half, you kind of get away from them as Godzilla really comes into the movie, and it really just focuses on mankind in general. They kind of ground the movie to start and suck you in with this family, the father-son duo with Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson. They're two characters, and I really like their characters. Are simple. There's nothing crazy about them, but they do enough with them that you're kind of invested, and they're well acted enough that you care about them. But then about the halfway point, they kind of jump back and forth between Aaron Taylor Johnson's character and kind of the bigger picture of just mankind. There's nothing we can do. We just gotta hope that we just aren't all destroyed by this. And I kind of really liked that aspect of it. I liked the restraint that they're not just spending, we'll get into a little bit here about Godzilla versus Kong, about how the entire movie is just CGI monsters. I mean, you get that this movie has some great scenes in it in this original Godzilla film. But again, there's some restraint to it.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, Mike, how much you remember, since you said it was a while ago, but you said you remembered enjoying this movie, even with some of the complaints that a lot of people had. I remember a lot of people were like, there's not enough Godzilla. I want to see more of Godzilla. But again, I kind of liked that Spielberg approach, like Jaws, where you're kind of waiting that build up, and they tease it before they finally reveal him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to it because it's been a long time, but I've thoroughly enjoyed and that was a movie that I did see in theaters. I know that, and
I wish I would.
I thought they did a great job with it.
Was that in Hillsdale?
Especially when you're in the theaters too. I mean,
you see it in
special effects and the sound effects. I couldn't tell if I saw it in Hillsdale.
Came out in 2014, so could have been
a good chance. Yeah, good chance.
2014, yeah.
There's a good chance that we saw it together at Hillsdale opening night.
Might have.
That's probably what happened.
Might have. When did it come out? It came out. It premiered May 16th. So maybe might have just been about finals week.
Yep.
Or just either right about or just after, because it would have been around that time. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's a great start to the universe. But I also like, as we're going to get into it, I like the approach this movie has, and the other films don't really have the same approach that this movie has in terms of how it's directed. I thought Gareth Edwards also does some really interesting things with the camera. Like there's a POV shot. I don't know if you guys remember, there's a POV shot of Aaron Taylor Johnson's character jumps out of a helicopter, and the camera, it's from like his helmet. And so like it's him seeing Godzilla and the monster fighting as he's dropping through the sky. Like awesome. That's like a bone chilling moment, right? Because you just see how huge Godzilla is as he's just like looking as he's falling through the sky. There's some really cool moments like that. They play around with kind of the camera work in it. I think it's really interesting. The other thing I read is this movie had no green screen.
Really?
I thought that was interesting. They pretty much
impressive.
All the special effects were done in post. There was no green screen used. So they filmed on location for everything.
Where did all the filming take place?
Filming locations were Vancouver. And looks like Vancouver, British Columbia. Looks like where most of it was done. Hawaii. They did some filming in Hawaii.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, because there's scenes in Hawaii, so they filmed on location there. Yeah. So yeah, they filmed on location in Canada, and they filmed on location in Hawaii. It looks like. I just kind of skimmed through it. But I thought that was a really cool little trivia fact. And I think that also helps with, the visuals in the film. It looks so real and so well done because, obviously a lot of the stuff with the buildings being destroyed and the monsters is all CGI, but everything outside of that was filmed on location. So it's grounded within those real locations. I think that kind of helps some of the visuals as well. But I thought Gareth Edwards, who I really liked Rogue One, I thought he did a great job with this movie as well. But anyway, great start to the franchise. You guys have anything else to add? Otherwise, we can jump into the next two more films before we get to Godzilla versus Kong.
I got none that. I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was a great intro to the series here. So.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you too, good?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the next one I don't have a lot to say on because I wasn't a huge fan of it, but the next one is 2017's Kong Skull Island. What'd you guys think of this? This was my first time watching. I did not catch this in theaters. I just watched on HBO Max for the first time about a week and a half ago. What'd you guys think of Kong Skull Island?
It makes sense why you didn't like this one if you liked Godzilla 2014. You know what I mean? Because
it's a completely different kind of movie.
All action. Let's get this massive monkey destroying shit and
literally like within the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there was even a scene where the guy's just having a sip of water, and they had to have an action scene there where he's got to kill this giant octopus. Where remember that? Yeah. So it just felt like fighting the whole movie. Which sometimes I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you just need. Sometimes you just need some monsters destroying shit, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is fun. I gave it a positive review. I I felt like it was worth watching. I wouldn't hate myself for watching it again. But I did like Godzilla 2014 better than this movie. What do you think of it, Mike?
It's you're getting what you know, like you guys said, what you're paying for. It's just over the top, kind of just ridiculous movie. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't see it again though. I don't really have any, and that's another movie that I did see in theaters as well. But yeah, I mean, for face value, it's just an action flick and nothing more really.
Well, and the thing that bugged me the most about this movie is how painfully obvious it was that Warner Brothers and Legendary Studios wanted this to be as close to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as possible, especially in response to some of the negative audience reception from Godzilla. I mean, because you have the 70s setting and music, because that became popular with Guardians of the Galaxy, having the 70s setting. Yeah. Same with the colors. I mean, super bright, vivid, eye-popping colors that seemed a lot very Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy-esque. You have all the quips and the humor and kind of the campy. It's very campy. All the characters are almost caricatures, of other films and other genres. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson's character is such an over-the-top caricature of like this war chief general, whatever, like Vietnam War. I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's entertaining. But again, it's not something I would, go out of my way to watch again and again.
I thought it was funny too. Samuel L. Jackson's character. I remember
it's entertaining.
When didn't kill anybody, but actually he does kill a couple people. But he destroys all the helicopters.
Yep.
And like Samuel L. Jackson is like eyeing down Kong. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
That was actually a kind of cool scene when Kong's
like, what are you gonna do?
When he's raising up through the
giant
fire.
Monkey.
But when he's raising up through the fire, that was actually a pretty cool shot.
Yeah.
They even have a post-credits scene in this movie. Did you guys watch it through the credits?
Yeah, it's when they're kind of going over all the different monsters, right?
Yeah, like, they're talking about all the monsters at the end. I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like such a cheap and obvious ploy and attempt.
It's kind of like an overcorrection. It was kind of like an overcorrection, yeah, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, you don't like how we shot Godzilla 2014? Well, here's a giant.
Well, everyone likes Marvel. Everyone likes Marvel, so let's make it like Marvel. Yeah. But Marvel has all these great characters they spent 10 years setting up, and
that's not true.
This movie's about monsters.
Yeah,
so.
they're just pulling characters out of thin air, man.
Yeah, because that's not really the point. I think Justin, you said that the point is you're eventually getting to Kong and Godzilla fighting, which we're gonna get into in just a moment here. But like that's the whole point. Is they're just trying to set up these monsters that eventually are just gonna beat the crap out of each other. So the characters at the end of the day really don't matter. But I did kind of like some of those grounded character moments in the 2014 film. And this film just completely sidestepped that and went for all the goofy campiness with the characters and just complete destruction. And it is entertaining. I mean, the skull, what are they called? Skull. What are those monsters called? The skull
crawlers.
Yeah.
Those are giant lizards.
Yeah, those things are fun to watch. I mean, they're kind of creepy. I love the scene where I can't remember the actor's name, where he goes to sacrifice himself. Maybe the funniest death in a movie ever. He goes to sacrifice himself, and the thing just tail whips him into the mountain.
Oh yeah,
pretty funny. I laughed pretty hard at that. He's like thinks he's gonna get eaten and blow the thing up, and the thing like sees him and just whips him. I thought that
the skull crawlers are creepy though. I mean, that's a good monster. Basically, what these movies are, it's like the prelims to like the actual main event fight. They had to pump out some shit to get the ball rolling, and then it was all for the heavyweight bout that we're eventually getting.
Get some money going, get some interest going, get people talking about it. And, eventually they're going, people are going, okay, Godzilla versus Kong is coming. It's coming. And that's kind of what this is doing, is teasing. So I don't have much more to say about Kong Skull Island other than it was just kind of a quick, entertaining setup to get Kong into this universe. I love the 2005 King Kong from Peter Jackson. A lot of people complained that movie was too long. I really liked it. I think that movie's great and it's a lot of fun. This movie obviously is a much shorter, quicker, convenient route to kind
completely different story.
Yes,
right. They're not going for any depth there.
Yeah, they're going for something different. I get they're trying to get a cinematic universe going here with these monsters. But with that, we can kind of move on to the last movie that I have. The last movie before Godzilla vs. Kong that I literally have almost nothing to say about because I was Thought it was so boring. I really wanted to turn it off. 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters. Again, did not see this in theaters. I watched this for the first time on HBO Max. I personally did not really like this movie at all. It was literally the exact opposite of everything I enjoyed about the 2014 Godzilla. At least Kong Skull Island was super like campy and silly and knew what it was being. This movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters, I felt like still tried to have the serious like tone of the 2014 film, but that film took itself seriously and had like all these great themes and stuff that explored, and it was restrained. Whereas King of the Monsters didn't have any of that. It had way too many characters, took itself way too seriously. I didn't give a shit about anyone that was in this movie. And it was pretty much just, and while the monsters from start to finish were very entertaining, it pretty much, I mean, just became a CGI fest. And I don't know. What did you guys think of this movie? I wasn't big on it, as you can tell.
You nailed that like a split hot. Made that Grace your bitch. I'm with you. I mean, it was just a monster movie, and I'm just entertained by the Godzilla stuff. I would agree with you, Vince, that it didn't, again, have any type of depth to it that the one in 2014 had. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to, elaborate a whole lot on it. I saw it in theaters again, so it's a cool movie to see in the theaters for sure.
Oh,
I think you should see every
The
MonsterVerse
CGI
movie in the theater.
was awesome. The monsters I thought were awesome.
You got to see every MonsterVerse movie in the theaters. Have to. It's that type of experience.
I'm a little behind on that because I haven't seen any in theaters.
Yeah, you got to do it, dude. It's a different thing. Like IMAX. Like you remember when we talked about Tenet last time? Like you saw the trailer for it and you're like, okay, you can kind of get a feel for what movies you need to see
on the big screen. Yeah, on the biggest screen possible.
I think these types of movies, give it a shot.
I agree with you. I'm sure I would have probably had a better experience had I seen this like in IMAX or on just a movie theater screen. But at the end of the
audio,
day,
you buy into it maybe a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, you're watching these in such a short time period that you're like, God, I feel like I've seen this shit already. It's just it's pretty repetitive.
I really did. I watched all of these within the last couple of weeks.
Godzilla'd out, man.
Yeah. And I don't have the same connection as you do, Justin, with the series. Like I honestly, when 2014 Godzilla,
nobody does, dude.
Yeah, when 2014 Godzilla came out, I was really indifferent to it. That's why I didn't go see it there. So I was like,
nobody grew up watching Godzilla besides me. It's kind of sad if you
no Americans, right? All the Japanese,
exactly.
The Japanese people enjoyed watching, but Justin was over here watching them all as a kid.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I was excited for this one, because I knew King Ghidorah. Okay.
From the Japanese
Godzilla nerd here. I knew him from.
Dude, this is wild to me. I never knew that you were a Godzilla nerd.
Yeah. Do you think I'm gonna introduce myself? Hi, I'm Justin. I like Godzilla. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I've known you for a long time. I had no idea that you knew so much about Godzilla.
I didn't either. I've known you for almost 10 years. I didn't know all this.
I knew King Ghidorah was like a badass in the original Godzilla films. Godzilla really
that's the three-headed monster, right?
Yeah. With the lightning, whatever.
Yeah, I think it was pretty.
He did a great job with the monsters. The monsters were badass.
No, absolutely, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
For you, I'm sure it takes on a whole nother meaning with that connection with your childhood. Because if I had watched all these, I would probably get a lot more excited. But I just don't have that connection, and I don't know. I like the last movie we're going to talk about, the main topic of conversation, I liked more because it kind of cut out some of the fluff. The King of the Monsters movie, they tried to shoehorn in so many characters, and I'm like, I don't care. And they at least Kong doesn't take itself seriously. It's so campy and goofy. Whereas King of the Monsters, I felt like all the stuff with the characters tried to be like the 2014 film, and in terms of tone and themes, and it just doesn't work because you don't care about the characters. You care about the monsters. You want to see them fight.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of how I felt coming out of it. But
no, I would agree with that.
If you guys are cool with it, I'd rather move on to the last one because I really didn't give a shit about King of the Monsters.
Let's do it.
All right. So the main topic of discussion here is the 2021 recently released Godzilla versus Kong, the culmination of 7 years of films I think what 4 total movies, I believe, over 7 years. And actually, this was supposed to come out in 2020, November, I think it was. It got pushed to March, end of March here. And it is simultaneously, if you have not seen it, it is currently on HBO Max, as well as in theaters right now. So we are going to probably talk some spoilers. Hopefully you saw the other films we talked about, because we did all talk spoilers on those, but those have been out for a while. This film has just come out, so we will be talking some spoilers. So Godzilla versus Kong, what did you guys think?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was as a silly movie.
Oh yeah.
But the CGI was really incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched it in my living room, but the way that they do Godzilla, it's so cool. The special effects with his roar, like his face when they get close up on it, it's just so badass. Godzilla's
Very detailed.
Yeah. I was they obviously, they're taking this away from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I really enjoyed the soundtrack. I thought there were some really cool scenes where they had some good tunes playing from, probably like the 70s
Yep.
era. But I mean, how many people died, making that film? That's what I kept on thinking, and I had an edible before, and I was like, Jesus Christ, there must have been so many fatalities in this movie. Like, this skyscraper's just like not a big deal at all.
Well, they talk about that a lot in the 2014 film. They kind of get into that, how many people die.
Yeah, it's got to be hundreds, maybe millions, and that's what I kept on going back to. I was just like, geez.
Especially because where are they in the final fight? Is it Tokyo? Isn't it
Hong
Tokyo?
Kong.
Yeah,
Hong Kong. It was Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong is like
it's gone.
A lot of people, but
Yes.
like hundreds of millions of people live in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
it's one of the biggest cities in the world.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, how, Godzilla's out there, and you're gonna still post up just in Tokyo and just roll the dice that this guy will never come and just completely flatten.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be living in Idaho, dude. I won't be near a body of water.
I wouldn't be near a city or a body of water either. Absolutely not. I'd live in the middle of nowhere.
Definitely not near one of those, like, what is it, Apex, near one of those headquarters.
Their facilities.
Not.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because where is that in the beginning of the movie? Isn't it Florida? It was like in Florida or something where it gets destroyed.
Somewhere like that. Yeah. Yeah. No one in Chicago. They probably have some type of headquarters here. So if Godzilla was real, I'd probably be fucked.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. For sure you would.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this too. I mean, I still like the 2014 Godzilla a little bit more, just because I do kind of like some of the themes and the character stuff they play around with in that movie. And this movie does have a bit overbearing amount of characters again. I'm sorry, I like Millie Bobby Brown in Stranger Things, but I don't think she's good in these movies.
Dude, I totally agree. Thank you for saying it.
I like
they
her in
didn't need
Stranger.
to have her in there to begin with.
No,
What was the point of that trio, dude?
There was
I didn't like any of it.
that was stupid. It was corny, and like the black guy that's like a nerd,
the podcaster, he kind of helped bring in some of the campiness from Kong in terms of his character's just really silly and kind of a caricature. Again, this conspiracy theorist online, he's entertaining, but again, it's just so many characters. It's like at the end of the day, do you really care about the characters in these movies? No.
And then they had that narrative with like the father-daughter, and then of course the dad is like the head of Apex or whatever that is. And
yes,
she's going against him,
and I mentioned it already, but I like the characters in the 2014 film because it's so simple, and it's literally just this tiny family that by the time the movie gets going, the mom has already died a long time ago, right? Bryan Cranston's character is not around very long into the movie. And then it's just Aaron Taylor Johnson and his wife and his kid. Really, you don't see them much either. It's really just him. You don't have all of these extra characters that are just shoehorned into the movie for whatever reason. I feel like that's what makes that movie so great. It's just simple. It's very simple. These movies, I don't know why they continue to just shove in. I mean, I'm looking at the cast list for this movie. It's like a dozen people: Rebecca Hall, Damian Bichir, Alexander Skarsgård, Millie Bobby Brown. They have like a lot of big names.
Yeah. I think,
And I feel like that's what they were trying to do, is just actually just get some big names.
well, I think they're trying to create some more interest with like other crowds of people. I don't know, different audiences. So like Millie Bobby Brown and that trio, it's like maybe tailoring to like a younger crowd, obviously. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I feel like there's a point there of why they're in there, but it overall, did it make the film better? Probably not. Yeah.
No, because I really didn't care about anyone in the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
The best character relationship in the film, and they should have explored it more, was the little girl in Godzilla.
Or King Kong. Yeah.
Or King Kong, excuse me. King Kong and the little girl. That was the most interesting character relationship in the whole film. And it even had a bit of an arc to it by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It was super simple, too. It was so simple.
Yeah.
What if it was flipped and she was actually best friends and Godzilla's doing sign language with her?
That would have been a trip. Oh my god.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to have the human element though, like Kong.
No.
No.
I always feel bad for Kong. I always have a soft spot for him.
Yeah,
I
because they
remember
humanized him.
I didn't like the 2005 King Kong because it just broke my heart that,
When he died?
Yeah.
when he gets murked, man, it kills me.
It is
Dude,
sad.
he does.
This
They
movie's a
shoot him
total
on top of a
drag.
building, dude.
Well,
and he falls off a building.
That is one thing I like
After
better.
kidnapping him.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know?
I would say that is one thing that I enjoyed more about the 2005 one versus the 1933 is the 1933 one. Kong isn't really humanized. 2005, he's definitely humanized, and you kind of care about him.
Yeah. Well, sorry to go back to that. 1933, it was like this giant monkey is kidnapping this girl or this woman, and she's not about it. Whereas in 2005,
they have a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's far more interesting. And that's what I liked about this new movie, Godzilla versus Kong, is that obviously you have that little girl who's the last of her, last of the natives on Skull Island. And she's, they even add the element that she's deaf. So, I mean, she's a far more simple character in that she doesn't even have any dialogue. She communicates with Kong through sign language. And that's like even far more grounded and realistic because apes, primates in the real world can communicate and learn sign language. So I just thought that in that aspect was the most interesting character, thread throughout the film. No one else in the movie I really cared about or was interested in.
I agree.
I was most engaged in the film when those two were interacting and when Kong and Godzilla were fighting.
Yeah.
Hollow Earth was also pretty cool. I really thought the Hollow Earth stuff was great.
I think
I
so
was
too.
having a hard time following like that whole narrative.
It was very complicated.
It was.
But it was visually fun to watch.
Satisfying. Yeah. Visually satisfying for sure.
I'm there with you, Mike. I was having trouble going with. I just remembered in the other films, because I just watched all of them, they kept talking in the King of Monsters one, they said how there's like these shafts in the earth where the monsters kind of travel through. But again, I was kind of zoned out in that movie.
Well, that's a new concept in this new series though, right?
Oh, that's never been explored before?
I don't think so. And then the older ones, no.
You would know better than I would.
Yeah, I think that's something that they added here. And I think it's for future films in the series. I think it makes it more interesting. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess I'll get into that because I'm glad you mentioned that. Apparently, they've come out and made statements. They don't have any plans currently for future movies. They were going to kind of sit back and see how successful this film was, which I think which I thought was interesting that they didn't have like some template for like a whole bunch of movies. They basically, their plan was to get to this movie, Godzilla versus Kong, and they just really don't have anything else set up after this. I think last I saw a statement from one of the producers, with Legendary Pictures, who's the main production company behind these films, owns the American rights to these movies, basically said they might make more movies. It is going to kind of depend on what audiences want, how well this movie's received. And it has been received well. I mean, they said
400 million.
It broke a pandemic record. So this is the highest grossing film since the pandemic started.
Yeah. Dude, they're for sure going to make more movies. There's like 20 monsters, quote unquote. I think it's around 20.
But how much of a market in the United States is, outside of Japan? how much of a market is there for these movies outside of Godzilla and Kong being in them? Because obviously a lot of people are familiar with the names and the films and stuff associated with Godzilla and King Kong.
Yeah, I think the way you got to get more like traction, especially, I don't know, maybe in the United States, is you need to have better characters, like people, so that people can relate to, not just like giant monsters.
Again, the 2014 film was interesting because of that.
You got to have people that like consistent characters. Stop introducing 10 people every single movie
who you don't care about.
Who you don't care about. Exactly.
They had it set up to where they were like, okay, we got to check this box, we got to check this box, we got to check this box. So like with the corny, nerdy black guy, and then the daughter relationship. It was. They had like an MO.
Well, and I think they have something interesting there if they take that native girl and her character, her relationship with Kong could be interesting, because the movie ends with them having like a monarch facility in the Hollow Earth monitoring Kong, and I think she was there. Yeah. Like, so you could continue these movies with some sort of character exploration of those two.
Kind of having her be the the chick in the 1933 or the 2005 one, where he's like taking care of that. I think that's a tie in there.
Yeah, but that character, that Ann Darrow, is such a stereotype. She's like the blonde in distress, whereas this one is, this native has a connection because she's from the island, right? She's like the last of her kind from the Skull Island. So I think that's even more interesting. And I think it's something they could continue with. I don't know if they will, but to me, that would be the only character that I would find interesting if they continued that on in the other movies. The other, like you said, Mike, and Justin, both of you guys, there's just so many each one of these movies introduced like 3 to 4 more characters. So I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about any of these people.
Yeah. You got to start building up the characters and have more consistent people in the same movies. You had 4 movies. So there's not one person that's been in each movie. You know what I mean? You've had 4 movies now.
Yeah. That trio, that entire trio didn't need to exist, because they still had to have that narrative with the bad guy, even though he kind of sucked and really did bring a whole lot to the table. Just always drinking whiskey, no matter where he is at all times.
It existed. It only existed to bring in Mecha Godzilla. We didn't even talk about that yet. That they bring in Mecha Godzilla, which I had heard of Mecha Godzilla before, because I know that's been explored, right, Justin, in other films.
Oh yeah.
Justin, tell us about Mecha Godzilla.
I didn't know anything about the Mecha.
Mecha Godzilla's badass in the original films, and it's kind of like a similar setup in the original ones, where these monsters would like team up to destroy Mecha Godzilla, basically.
And Mecha Godzilla was always created by the humans to basically fight off the monsters, right?
Yeah.
And same thing happens. He has a mind of its own, and then they lose control.
No, so that was different, and I don't really know. They never used, and I'm still not entirely sure what they did to control Mechagodzilla. They said something about like using the DNA of like King Ghidorah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That wasn't a part of the original films at all. No.
Okay.
It was just them creating a robot to fight off other monsters. It had no connection to anything else. So.
Well, I did enjoy that entire final battle sequence. I liked kind of the switch, how it went from Godzilla and Kong fighting to Kong and Godzilla teaming up to fight Mecha Godzilla. I thought that entire final, 20 plus minutes was a lot of fun and really entertaining. And like Mike said, the CGI, like the special effects, is pretty incredible. And I love the colors in Hong Kong. It's like all these bright neon colors is pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome when Kong and Godzilla were fighting. It was cool.
Well, and the director Adam Wingard, kind of like Gareth Edwards, did some interesting things with the camera. There's like some video game shots where you like see Godzilla's hands or King Kong's hands like fighting from their point of view. Yeah, it's kind of cool how they played around with that a little bit. I like how Godzilla and Kong kind of navigated the buildings. Kong jumping between the skyscrapers and stuff. They did some interesting things with the environments too, with the city. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch, entertaining.
Oh yeah, I love that. I thought that scene was definitely visually satisfying for sure. Yeah,
it was interesting too because Godzilla obviously could have killed King Kong, and he just decided not to.
Yeah, that was
like stepping on him.
Yeah, I thought that was.
It wasn't always so one-sided, by the way. I want to say that in
the originals
ones. It wasn't always so one-sided.
In
So
terms
I
of,
think that there's a motive there, obviously. You know, directors weren't just like, all right, let's make Godzilla way more badass than King Kong. I think that there's a point to it.
What's the point then?
I mean, Vince, what did you kind of think into that a little bit? Like what you thought Godzilla maybe? Did you think there was a hidden message behind this one, or was it just strictly monsters fighting?
I mean, I think all of these films obviously present that man versus nature kind of aspect, and none of them explored nearly as much as the original 2014 film in this series. I thought this film touched on it a little bit more than the previous two movies, obviously. And I kind of felt like you could interpret that a little bit from Godzilla and Kong fighting. Like maybe Godzilla showed some respect, like maybe, again, I don't know how much I'm, looking into this too deeply, but to me, as I watched the movie, I kind of felt like Godzilla felt like maybe some mutual respect for Kong with them fighting, and maybe there's some sort of a unspoken relationship there, that they're kind of the two remaining alphas. Why fight and destroy each other, especially when Mecha Godzilla shows up, when they kind of realize they can help each other. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're just two monsters. There's not, you can read into it however you like, but that was really kind of the only thoughts that I was taking away watching the movie, and, afterwards kind of thinking about, and, obviously the movie ends with Kong down in the Hollow Earth, and basically Kong rules the Hollow Earth and Godzilla rules the oceans. So it's like, maybe you can infer that they can basically take their own territory and still, respect each other. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's also just a blockbuster movie with two monsters fighting each other. So
that at the end of the day, it's just monsters fighting each other. Exactly.
And you can have fun, or, pick it apart.
Yep.
It is fun picking it apart though.
Oh, it is.
We all knew exactly what type of movie it was. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
everybody goes into that, not really thinking you're going to get a whole lot, out of it.
No, it's
but
not.
I do like picking it apart.
No, it is fun, but it's not some artsy, independent, pretentious movie. It's Godzilla and Kong fighting each other. I mean, and it's about as entertaining as you can get. I think, how long was this movie? It was almost 2 hours.
So,
I think they could have cut it down if they would have removed some of these characters. They probably could have cut out a little bit of fluff. And because I was going to say it's almost as perfect as you could get for what this is going for, but I think it could have been a little bit better. I think the fights were incredible. I mean, everything with Godzilla and Kong is great. And a lot of the lore that they kind of build, again, with the Hollow Earth and the monsters, when they go down and see Kong's throne, like his ancestor's throne, I would have liked more of that. I want to see, them kind of explore more of that and cut out some of the human character elements that you just don't care about. But it'll be kind of interesting to see where they go. We can talk about that if you guys haven't. Do you guys have any other closing thoughts on this movie, and then we can kind of talk about future of this to end it?
I don't have any more. I mean, it's an entertaining movie. Go see it in theaters.
So to kind of wrap things up here, the last thing I just wanted to mention is, what do you guys think then going forward? Again, let me see if they've got anything new. Last I had checked, so it says April 2021, which is, just within the last week and a half here. Legendary CEO commented on potential sequels. We have a number of ideas for more movies. That same month, the hashtag continue the MonsterVerse became trending on Twitter. It was acknowledged by Legendary Pictures. So before, and that was April. I mean, that's just in the last couple days here, last couple weeks. Previously, in February of this year, Adam Wingard, the director of this movie, said, I know where we could go with potentially future films. However, the MonsterVerse was created to lead towards this movie. We're at a crossroads at the point where audiences have to step forward and vote with these kind of things. If this movie's a success, they will continue. So they had nothing planned going into this movie, but it sounds like this movie's doing very well. It's being received, I mean, as well as a movie like this can be received from critics. I mean, 75% Rotten Tomatoes, 6.4 out of 10. 59 out of 100 on Metacritic. I mean, it's a monster movie. I think it's being well received for what it is, and people are enjoying it for what it is, and people are going to see it for almost 400 million at the box office in just a couple weeks here.
Yeah.
And apparently HBO Max reported the highest number of subscriptions were purchased and that movie was watched more than any new film they've ever had on the streaming service.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt that they continue the monster.
I would call it a success. So what do you guys think?
I totally agree.
Money to be made. Yeah, I think they'll keep on pumping them out. It's like Transformers, and I don't think they'll ever, stop. I think maybe that they set it up kind of tied into what we were talking about earlier, how there was some type of like respect and bond between the two of them. So maybe it's just like Kong and Godzilla being a badass team. Just a new monster comes in and they have to team up again and to kill him.
That's what scares me though, because I could see that getting so repetitive.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's been played out already. So
yeah, I think that's what they're kind of touching on, the director and some of the producers and the people at Legendary Pictures. Like, where do you go from here to keep this fresh? Because obviously they were teasing Godzilla and Kong fighting.
Well, I don't know. I think leaving Kong in Hollow Earth. What's up?
I don't think you can keep it fresh.
I mean,
the only thing that comes to my mind. And Justin, you can tell me what you think because you've seen a lot of the other Godzilla and kaiju films, right? Aren't they called kaiju films? I think the monster.
Something like that.
Is there ever anything with outer space?
There actually is, yeah.
Like
I think that
anything like monsters or aliens coming from outside of this world. I feel like that would be about the only thing you could do to up the ante from any of these other films is something otherworldly showing up.
That's interesting you said that. Yeah, I think there is one of them that comes from, I can't remember the name. The names of these.
The difference if it comes from fucking space or if it's coming from the middle of the earth. It's the same shit.
Yeah.
It's monsters versus monsters either way.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I don't know. I think to answer your question, Vince, I think there is one character. I can't remember which one. I don't know the name of it. All these names are so weird anyway. But I thought it was like when you talk about the vision, I don't know if there's a vision, but with King Kong and Hollow Earth, it's a new setting. I think that there's something to play with there.
They could explore that.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, because they haven't done much of anything with that. They just basically teased it in this movie.
That's one movie right away that I think will do well and people will be interested. Kong and like Hollow Earth, it's like, I'll check it out.
And maybe even go into the past, explore,
I thought about that too.
More origins with that.
I thought about that too, because Godzilla, the creature, I don't know. I guess those were the two main rulers, right? Back in the day.
The two alphas or whatever.
They hinted at that. Well, I can't remember her name, but it was the woman that communicated sign language with the deaf girl from the island.
Rebecca Hall's the actress. I don't remember the character's name, but I know.
I don't remember her name either. But she hinted at that these were the two guys that back in the day
they ruled the Earth. Yeah, the Titans or whatever.
And they those were the two main creatures that battled with each other. So that's something that you could do there.
Yeah, that's about where I see it going. I agree with you. That's about you could either explore that Hollow Earth, maybe some of the origins, because like Mike said, I don't know how fresh you were going to keep Godzilla and Kong just teaming up and fighting monsters over and over. I mean, you could do it for maybe a couple movies. People are going to go pay to see it.
At the end of the day, dude,
if it's done well,
monster movie. Yeah, sometimes a monster movie just hits a spot.
Sometimes you just need some good, dumb, fun entertainment.
My boat. It's a good movie, to eat an edible and be like,
just kick back, relax, and have a good time. You don't need to think too much.
No, there isn't a lot of thinking going on.
No,
across the board, besides the one that you said in the 2014 one, you just take these movies at face value.
Yeah, I mean, again, that one does a pretty fascinating job of exploring some visual themes and some ideas, of failing in the face of nature. And I think it's continued partially in some of these movies, but not to the same degree or done nearly as well. But again, for what this movie is, it is a lot of fun. It's I don't know how they continue to up themselves with special effects. The CGI, I mean, the visuals are pretty incredible.
I'm telling you, Godzilla is so cool, man.
The fight sequences, the detail of Godzilla's detail, like on his face and his body, is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go see more movies like this. I guess I'd have to see what they come up with. I might. I don't know. I did enjoy this. I enjoyed the 2014 one. Kong is fine for what it is. The King of Monsters one I wasn't a big fan of, but I don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think? Would you go see more of these?
If they're on HBO Max for free, sure. I'm not going to go.
Yeah, HBO Max.
I'll see them in theaters. I just like watching movies in theaters. I'm one of those guys.
I am too.
I'll go to the theater to see just about any movie. It's just like I just like doing it. It's a different experience. I like going up there, buying a ticket, picking my seat. I like everything about it. So yeah, I would go see these movies. And if it's like one every couple of years, 2.5, 3 years, I go see a monster movie every 3 years. You know what I mean?
Sit back and relax and just be entertained.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be a movie that I'd want to have have like a couple sons who are like 9 or 10 years old.
Oh,
and then,
for sure.
Take them to the movie. They would be like,
they'd be pissing their pants.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to go for. It's not like us, dude, like guys in their late 20s going to the movies. It's families,
the people that they're trying to go for. Yeah,
it's parents with kids. It's satisfying for everybody there. It's not us, dude.
It's just a good, it's a fun time just to keep keep people entertained. Yeah, you could definitely take kids to this. I mean, there's nothing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just monsters fighting in a city. I mean, there's nothing that objectionable that little kids, you'd be upset about them seeing. I mean, I saw them. I saw worse movies when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, any parting thoughts? Otherwise, we can wrap things up here.
Carter? I don't have anything other than, again, so many deaths. So many pointless.
So many people died. Yeah, Hong Kong's gonna be rebuilding for the next century.
And like, how could you ever go in the ocean if you know that Godzilla is just like swimming about?
Dude, that's actually never. I'm terrified of the ocean now. I won't even step foot because of like sharks, and I get statistically how crazy it is if that would ever happen.
The one thing that terrifies me about the ocean is that 70-something% of it is unexplored. It's so deep, we have no idea what's down there.
Oh no, I think that percentage is much higher, dude.
I'm pretty sure I shortchanged it. I'm pretty sure it's much higher.
It's definitely north of 80%.
They kind of touch on that in the original Godzilla, in the 54 one. They're talking about like, the nuclear stuff awakening him. All that.
You don't know what's down there, yeah.
Right. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I think I mentioned in like earlier that they didn't really explore like Hollow Earth, but maybe they just like kept that open in the original film. Like maybe that was the original idea, but they just never talked about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
It was just in the original one. They were just like, yeah, he's down there in some cave.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, all right, guys. Thanks for letting me take some of your time here on a Sunday night to chat about Godzilla versus Kong and some of these other monster films. Thanks for listening. If you joined us, hopefully you had a good time listening to our conversation. Hopefully you saw the movies. If you didn't, sorry that we spoiled it all, but we warned you. This was going to be an in-depth conversation. Justin DiAgostino, Mike Carter joining me here on the Film Nerd Podcast. Hopefully having them back very soon. Until next time, go watch some movies.